welcome to a new video. I hope you had a great day. Let's take a look at some new stories, shall we? The first story is called I Made My Boss Look Bad. So last year I worked with a friend as interns at the communication department of my university. The whole department had 4 permanent workers, plus the manager as in the head of the department and the super manager as in the person highest in the hierarchy of the office, who made the connection between the department and the presidency. The interns were responsible for all the video and photography. The university has 8 faculties, and we, the interns, had to sort out what events needed to be covered and let the facilities know we would be there, as well as schedule interviews. We were really responsible for everything, including booking the car, driving to the places and whatnot, from day one. Keep in mind, this was our first real job. The manager was the person responsible for our internship, meaning that everything we did or were asked to do had to go through him and get his approval. The manager was also supposedly the guy who was the expert in video and photography, and being in charge of our internship. He bragged many times that he was good and had a lot of work done and published and exhibitions and whatnot. Thing is, he seemed just stupid. He couldn't manipulate pictures beyond adjusting basics like brightness and contrast, and he couldn't edit a video to save his life. He was also constantly contradicting himself, and this became relevant to the policy around working overtime. According to him, if necessary, we should work overtime or weekends even, but it was up to us to decide if we wanted to. This was discussed in the interview. The hours were to be compensated as time off on days where we had little or no work to do. We kept an Excel sheet that he could barely comprehend, updated with the hours, what they were for, and when we compensated them. It got to a point where we had summed up 3 days in overtime, and he went nuts. Said it was unnecessary, that we shouldn't have covered most events, even though he knew about them, as we had to present him with a sort of report on what we wanted to cover, and that, from that moment on, everything had to go through him, as it already was. It was not our fault that he didn't pay attention to the things we wrote. My colleague and I were sick of him for many reasons other than these. We decided to not work overtime ever again, because we were not forced to, and we were only doing it for the best interest of the department, as we were not getting paid extra. In the following week, there was this important opening of an exhibition from the theater faculty, and surprise surprise, it's at night. So my colleague and I stick to our decision, and we both say we can't. Well, it was so important that even the super manager begged us to go. We couldn't. So the manager had to go, as he was the only other one who was good with video and photography, except he wasn't. He filmed the whole thing with the wrong shutter speed, so the entire video had 2 green stripes across it. He didn't know how the sound recorder and lapel microphones worked, so he took a Rode mic to attach to the camera. But he didn't manage to get that one to work either, so he simply used the camera sound. Overall, it was a mess. I was asked by the super manager to correct the video as well as possible. I could have made more, but I didn't, as his name was in the credits and I thought he deserved that kind of credits. It took weeks to upload the video because it was just too bad. This way, we proved to him that we were much better at our job than he thought we were, and he proved to be a useless person in that office once more. I quit not much later. The next story is called Do Your Job. I was hired to provide data analytics and lead process improvement efforts for a government healthcare organization that is not well known for process improvement. Given the lack of interest in improvement from the clinic manager, I was soon assigned tasks not remotely related to my job description. Specifically, I was assigned to work at the front desk, answering phone calls, checking in patients, and, of course, working incoming faxes. So several meetings were held, clearly establishing I was not to be assigned front desk duties. I continued to be asked to help out and be a team player by the clinic manager. I didn't object to helping out when my tasks were complete, but this became a sore spot for about 6 months, until my manager threatened to fire me if I raised any further complaints up the chain of command. So I knew this was wrong. I was planning to start a family and was intimidated into compliance for fear of losing my livelihood. This office was full of the worst kind of petty drama, and I had made an enemy from the early days when I had the ability to refuse to work the front desk. Now I was working beside her full time and she was out for blood. As a socially awkward introvert, I was well suited to the analytical work of my official job role, but was not at all suited for the frequent, brief interactions associated with my new duties. I started each day stressed out and anxious for the work ahead, but I honestly did my best. and intentionally kept busy to keep the anxiety-full dread at bay. Apparently I was not doing enough though. A clinic meeting was called with all the clinic staff and providers, where a third front desk staff member and I were called out by our manager for not helping with enough faxes at the front desk. I looked over at my nemesis and she had a smug grin on her face. Clearly she had instigated this. Once I realized what was happening, I raised my hand in an effort to speak. "What is it?" my manager teasingly asked. If there is an issue with my performance, I would prefer to have that discussion one-on-one rather than in front of the entire clinic. I calmly objected. "We would prefer you did your job," she replied. I'm not the one to stir things up, but I was already uneasy with the very public ambush and was now seeing red after that comment. So I retorted, "I would prefer to be doing the job I was hired for too." The solution to this manufactured problem was that my coworker and I, not the instigator of course, put our initials on any faxes we work. This would have zero practical effect, mind you, as the faxes get distributed to different providers and are never collected afterward. Felt like an odd sort of punishment, like writing "I will not" 500 times on a chalkboard. My response was to write the following on every fax I received. This fax is provided to you courtesy of my full name. I prepared and delivered this fax on long form date at time. Please know, this is not an official job function of mine, so I'm happy to help. If there are any other tasks you'd like me to complete that are not in my job description, please contact me at extension. I think my nemesis and managers thought I'd grow tired of this, but I rather enjoyed it. The phone would ring, and I would tell my nemesis, "Sorry, I need to be sure to sign this fax I'm working, so you're going to have to get that." "What's that? A patient needs to be checked in?" "Sorry, working a fax." My manager called me into her office a couple of weeks later to complete a coaching statement for my subversive behavior. On my form, I raised my objections that, first, my deficient performance was related to a task that is not an official function of mine, and secondly, the deficiency resulted from directions from the manager to complete the task contrary to existing procedures. This was the government, so of course there was a documented procedure in place. She submitted the form undeterred by my objections. Several weeks later, I was informed by HR they were rejecting the coaching based on my objections and it would not become a part of my public service record. Elated, I stopped signing my faxes. Unfortunately, it would be another year before my manager was forced to resign for refusing to grant me FMLA leave for the birth of my son because, according to her, man shouldn't be allowed to take time off for the birth of his child, but that's a story for another day. The last story is called Wait for Security. For the last 5 years, I've worked in rural office for a large organization in outback Australia. I work 4 hours away from the main building. The organization receives various amounts of government funding for lots of community programs. As such, it has a main building, several hubs in the same town, and a few hub offices in different towns, like my office. The organization has a volume of maintenance and security concerns, which they contract out to security and maintenance company, which I will refer to as SecurityCo. The contract between SecurityCo and my organization is very clear regarding expectations of both companies, costs outlined, and the burden of costs relating to oversights. The contract is renegotiated every 3 years and is profitable for SecurityCo. All goes well. SecurityCo was in charge of maintenance and security for the main office and all offices within 20 kilometers of the main office. I have a few friends across the organization and we meet up for drinks when I'm required to work in the main office, which is about 2 to 3 times a year. During my first visit to the main office in 2018, as usual, I met with a few friends. Aaron from the account department, Kevin from the contract department, and John, a manager of a hub. For the story, I need to explain that John manages a hub that is required to be staffed 24/7. 8 workers at shift, 3 shifts a day. The hub is located in a bad part of town, known for violence, drugs, and theft. As such, workers require security present during shift change to make sure workers get to and from the cars without issues. It's company policy, as workers have been mugged in the past. Over a few drinks, John told us that SecurityCo appointed a new manager that oversees security for the hubs. I will call him Jerk. Jerk was hired after his predecessor retired. Management and SecurityCo receives a bonus each year if the department runs at a profit. Before Jerk, security ran smoothly and turned a small bonus for managers wanting a bigger bonus. Jerk decided to reduce his department's cost by hiring fewer guards. This affected John's staff as security guards were not always present during shift change. John spoke to Jerk, who promptly responded with, "If your workers have to braid, then so be it. We will get there when we get there. Do I tell you how to manage your stuff? No, then bugger off and leave me run mine." John was just ranting as he was annoyed at the situation, but Kevin broke out the biggest smile and said, "If you play your cards right, you can really screw this jerk over." Kevin explained how Security Co. is expected to reimburse organization any costs resulting from negligence or oversight on Security Co.'s behalf, something Jerk is probably not aware of. At this point, Aaron started laughing and said, "If employees can't leave because it's too unsafe, then they are entitled to get paid until they can leave, including overtime. This overtime would be considered a reimbursement cost according to the contract." You could see the light bulb go off in John's head as an evil smile crept on his face and he said, "We will wait for security," as Jerk said. John told the next part to me via phone calls over the coming months. John sent Jerk an email informing him that the lack of security is causing a financial concern for John's department. His workers get overtime until security guards arrive. Jerk replied with, "I'll keep it in mind," confirming receipt of the email. For the next month, John emailed him daily, shift change times, and told his employees to log when security arrived, as that's when they clock off. Security would arrive 1 to 3 hours late, one night not even showing up. This caused a massive amount of overtime for workers, and due to industrial relations laws, casual workers were rostered to cover shifts that assigned workers were no longer allowed to work. We have a minimum 16-hour break between shifts in this field. All in all, payroll in John's department was up by $50,000 in 1 month. John was called into the CEO's office for this budget blowout, along with Aaron. The CEO said, "John, explain why this month's payroll is over by $50,000. Because employees had to stay back and wait for security. They can't leave work until security arrives, and since Jerk arrived, they are always late or not showing up." "What? And the workers cannot walk themselves to the car?" Aaron said, "Sir, the site requires security due to the location and risk of assault. And regarding the pay, employees are entitled to be paid if they are unable to leave the site." "Well, crap. What can we do about this? We can't keep this up." John asked, "Is Security Co. responsible for reimbursement of any costs resulting from negligence or oversight?" Aaron said, "I believe so." The CEO understood. "You planned this, didn't you, John?" John said nothing as he handed CEO a folder with every email he sent to Jerk. In the end, Security Co. repaid the $50,000. Jerk lost his bonus and more security guards were hired. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel for more content. Let me know what you think about the stories in the comment section below. Have a great day. Bye bye.